And we continue to follow the announced closure of the Crofton Mill. News broke yesterday that the mill will cease operations later this month and will fully close by spring. An expected 350 people will lose their jobs. This comes after a difficult few years for the forestry sector here on Vancouver Island. And joining us now for more is Jeff Kibble. He is the Conservative Member of Parliament for Cowichan, Malhat, Langford, which includes Crofton, and joins us from Ottawa. Jeff, thank you very much for making the time with us.
Thank you very much, and I wish it was under better circumstances.
Well, tell us, what have you been hearing from constituents since yesterday?
Well, I've heard directly from the mill itself about the closure, and in general, constituents, people in the riding are concerned. As we know, there are people struggling with affordability and feeding and housing themselves, and this is only going to serve to put even more families at risk.
And I want to talk more about the implications and the impact for the region in just a moment. But first, for anyone who might be unfamiliar, what role has this mill played across this region historically on the island?
Well, they've been here for many years, and as a pulp mill right now, it's providing employment directly for 350 families, and that works out to about 1,000 additional indirect jobs, trucking, machinists, suppliers, etc. So, we're looking at 1,300 plus workers that are going to be affected. And as far as economic impact in the region, it's about $900 million a year. I mean, it's a huge economic impact. And, this is now families that will be struggling to buy groceries and put a roof over their head. And frankly, it's shocking and heartbreaking.
Premier David Eby, BC Forest Minister Ravi Parmar was on the program yesterday saying he wants to keep all options open to see what might be possible for this mill moving forward, for what it may mean for Crofton moving forward in terms of alternative options. Have you had conversations with provincial colleagues about next steps on that front?
No, what we're focusing on is what we can do at the federal level. And as far as I'm concerned, the government has failed to negotiate softwood lumber tariff deal, currently at 45%. That's an industry-killing tariff. And although they don't sell specifically softwood at this mill, the supply chain is connected between the entire industry. So from the lumber mills to the fiber and the pulp mills, it's all interconnected. So at the federal level, that's the solution that we're pushing for. And I know at the provincial level, there's issues with supply of fiber, and that's up to the provincial government to help in that area, which I don't think they are.
Well, let's talk more about the federal implications. Prime Minister Mark Carney recently announced hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding for the forestry sector. That was in response to, and to your point, the impact of those U.S. tariffs on softwood lumber. Do you expect any of that money will support these pulp and paper workers in Crofton? What's your understanding of how that will work?
Absolutely not. And those announcements were for some funding and for some loans using printed money that only serves to further damage the economy. And clearly, those benefits have not helped the mills. They're not for workers. Those benefits were to try and keep the mills working. And we've now seen 31 mills in British Columbia shut in the 10 years. Clearly, their plan is failing, and it only is lip service to sound good.
And so tell us then, Jeff, what would a Conservative government do differently in a situation like this?
We would negotiate tariffs so that we could remove the softwood lumber tariffs. Look, the Harper government did it in 87 days. They were able to eliminate tariffs, and we even got $4 billion of payments returned back to Canada after we negotiated that. The Liberal government has had well over 10 years, and despite claiming that their new leader is capable of dealing with Trump and dealing with tariffs and negotiating, he should be ashamed that they've not achieved any of that. And we're seeing the impact across, it's not just in Crofton, but across the province. With, as I said, now 31 mills have closed in British Columbia. That's communities that are going to be suffering. That's families that are not going to be able to feed and house themselves.
Of course, those past governments haven't had to deal with a Donald Trump administration that certainly seems to be antagonizing allies like Canada, like Mexico. But we have seen deals reached between countries and institutions like the EU. Many experts, though, have said it might not be in its best interest to sign a deal if it's a bad deal. What's your sense of how to negotiate a situation like this with the U.S. administration?
Well, of course, you wouldn't want to sign a bad deal. And for the record, Trump hasn't been around that long. The Liberals have been around for 10 years, and we've gone from 14 to 30 to now 45%. So this is not a new issue. And then look, Great Britain was able to negotiate deals with Trump down at 10%. For some of their tariffs. So, it is possible to do, and we believe that the Conservative government could do that. And clearly both the Liberals have failed to negotiate a deal over the last 10 years with several different U.S. presidents. And their handouts, which is not what workers want. They want jobs. They want us to provide and support their families. They do not want handouts. And frankly, those handouts would only keep the companies operating for a few more months, and that's billions of dollars of printed money that just continues to damage the economy. So all in all, it's a downward spiral. The solution is negotiating tariffs. The solution is making sure that the mills have the fiber that they need to continue to operate. And that's how we would approach it.
What do you see as a potential transition path for a place like Crofton, for a region like Cowichan Valley, if forestry is not going to be the economic driver that it has been in the past moving forward?
Well, I disagree with the premise. I think forestry is a valuable, renewable resource for our province that will bring income in, that will help support the important social programs that we need. As far as the plant and the mill going forward, I've spoken with them several times, and they are investigating options of what they can do, but it's quite dire from where they stand, and then they would have to comment better on some of the options and possibilities that they're looking at. But right now the plant is for sale, so who knows what that's going to bring. My concern is clearly the families that are now struggling already in a challenging economy to feed and house themselves.
No, I take that point, but to your point there just now, if the outlook is dire based off those conversations you've been having, does it not make sense to have feasible future outlooks on what a transition could look like, might look like?
Well, I'm sure that the plant will be looking at all possible options, and I hope that they're able to find a solution going forward. It's very early days right now, and I'm sure they're going to be investigating that.
I guess what I'm asking, Jeff, is what sort of future you see potentially for industry and the economy here on the island?
Well, we need to, as I said, get a good deal with the Americans, which is our largest trading partner, so that we can sell our product and support our economy. We need to look at delivering and having deals with other countries, a little much more challenging to deliver our products there. And, that's called supporting our industry. That's what's going to help them. And of course, also making sure, as I mentioned earlier, that they have the lumber, the cut allotments met so that they can have the fiber and the lumber that they need. And as I said, don't forget that the industry is all interconnected from start to finish, so one impacts the other.
Well, Jeff, I know it's a later night because you're in Ottawa reaching us right now, so we really appreciate you making the time for us today.
Thank you very much, Jason, and look forward to our next discussion. Please reach out anytime.
All right, you take care. All the best.
Thank you.